So I guess welcome everyone. We've we're starting a little bit late. I just wanted to make sure folks had time to join in again today. And as far as I'm so happy that all of you are here. Um, Looking forward to this conversation that's going to be all about how to help you use data triggers to make better decisions and what you really should be focusing on. And I'd like to give our panelists, I will give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves, and we'll go through a set of questions that will help folks see things from different angles, from a marketing angle and a systems angle, whether it's a sales angle or even a financial angle, to see what kind of pieces of information we really should be focusing on. And then towards the end, the panelists will be, we'll have a chance to share their final thoughts and a piece of advice that could hopefully help you right now, as well as we'll go through any um, gifts that they have to share or any other communication or next steps forward if you wish to continue to work with them further or find out more. As far as housekeeping is concerned, just a quick note, this will be webinar style, so attendees will stay muted during the event. Please feel free to use the chat. We do have someone monitoring. Happens to be my daughter that I forced into this, but she will do a fantastic job, I'm sure. If any links get missed or you don't have a chance to grab them, not to worry. There'll be an email sent out after the event that will summarize all of that for us as well. As you can see, we have our panelists. So I'm going to start by giving them a minute to introduce themselves and share what they do, who they help, and where are they coming at everything from, meaning their point of view and their lens. So I'd like to start with that. Chris, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Shifley. I'm the founder of New Jersey Business AI, based right here in Bergen County, Wyckoff, New Jersey. I help small business owners use AI and smart digital marketing to help them grow and not just stay busy online. My lens today for data specifically is going to be focused around website and mostly Google related products like analytics and Search Console.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Meryl, how about you?
Thank you. I'm Meryl Shurry, owner of Tab Gateway, the alternative board. I'm also in Bergen, based out of Glen Rock. And I work with business owners and their teams to help them grow stronger, more profitable businesses. As business owners, as people, it's like we have a million hats that we could wear, right? It's like some hats we're very comfortable, we love them, we'll wear them all the time. Other hats we like shove to the back of the closet and are like, please don't make me wear that, right? And so I am here to help close the gaps. And oftentimes through that work and conversation, we find people actually have a hidden superpower we can uncover that helps them drive their business. So everything I do is about helping good businesses get better, and the people running them feeling less alone in the process.
Fantastic. Thanks, Meryl. Jennifer, on to you.
Thank you. So I am Jennifer Glass. I'm also in Bergen County, and I help growth stage businesses identify and eliminate what I call revenue friction. These are the hidden operational communication, leadership, and decision-making breakdowns that quietly are slowing growth, reducing profitability, and creating unnecessary complexity inside businesses. A lot of companies think they've got a sales problem, a marketing problem, or a people problem, but really what's happening is they have a cross-functional misalignment that's creating friction across the organization. So I work with these companies, helping them figure it out and getting rid of that friction. So I'm really looking forward to the panel and seeing where this all goes. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jennifer. Kimberly, you're up
Hi,
next.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim, and I am the owner of the Book Launch Lab. And what I do is I help coaches, course creators, and subject matter experts write and publish a nonfiction book, not just any book, the one that's going to drive readers and turn them into clients. So it's very specifically thought out, intentional, and purposeful, not a vanity metric, but one that is designed for lead generation and to turn readers into clients. So I'm excited to talk about it from book writing from that perspective on this panel today. Thanks for having me, Mirit.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate it. David.
Thank you so much, Marie, and pleasure to be here with everyone. My name is David Sarnoff. I'm the founder of Sarnoff Group, LLC. I'm a certified executive coach and leadership trainer. I started my career in law, spent 9 years at a law firm in New York City, started as a paralegal, worked my way up to being a senior associate, second, third chaired multiple trials in state and federal court. Then I spent 17 years in executive search, a dozen of those years as a co-founder in a search firm where I coached and consulted law firms, companies, and did a significant amount of recruiting. And 8 years ago, I went back to school to the executive coaching program at the Zicklin School of Business at Baruch College, found what I was meant to do. Deep dive in emotional intelligence. I'm certified in the EQI assessment and everything DISC. I work with companies of all sizes on management, leadership, giving and receiving feedback, bridging generations, effective communication, delegation, time management. I also recently co-authored a book with Natalie Loeb that was published by PLI Press of the Practicing Law Institute, and looking forward to having our dialogue today.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to have this conversation because each of you look at business information from a different angle. And I think number one, that's really what business owners need, all of us. We, especially as we, are looking to grow and improve. It's all about what is the information, what is it that we don't know that we don't know. And we get that piece really comes home when we get stuck on something and we realize we need additional help. So I really wanted to have your thoughts and your experiences come through for this panel. I'm going to move into our questions because I think that that's going to be really helpful for everyone. And we're going to start with when a business owner knows that something isn't working, but they can't really name the problem yet. What should they look at first to understand where they really are? Chris, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So for me, I oftentimes find businesses that I start working with don't have basic analytics set up for their website. And before I even start talking about strategy, I really want to see their numbers and not only where their traffic is coming from and demographics, but I also want to dig deep on that. So I set up 3 tools right off the bat, even before I take on a client, just so that if they don't already have these metrics running in the background, they absolutely need to have them in order to understand where they are and put together a roadmap for where they're going. So there's Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Google Business Profile. And Analytics tells you what people do when they land on your site. Search Console tells you what they typed into Google to find you. And your business profile tells you what's happening locally, who's calling you, who's asking for directions, who's clicking through to your website. So really understanding all of those data points is really important to understand where the traffic's coming from, how they're finding you. And more often than not, I find that people don't really understand the depth of the data that is available to them, and then also what to do with it thereafter. But really the foundational first step is just making sure that you have access to your data and that you're actively collecting that information.
Great. Meryl, how about from your viewpoint?
I always pull back to people's goals or critical success factors, what they've determined previously is the direction that they're going. And when they come say like, hey, this is going on, we say, okay, great. Is the issue that's going on, is that related back to a goal, right? Like where you want your business to be going? And so if the answer is, oh no, we seem to have gotten off track, then that's the clear step, is to say, oh, okay, so let's figure out the goal that you had set for yourself before. Is that still the one that makes sense? If it is, let's get back in alignment with that. If we look at the existing goal and say, oh, that doesn't fit at all, then we'll say, okay, what's the new goal? Where do you really want to go? And then we can come up with a next step.
Okay, great. Jennifer, how about from your point of view?
So a lot of what has already been said is really an important piece that we need to be paying attention to, right? So many business owners are making decisions before they really are clearly identifying where they actually are. Think about those maps where you see that little red circle that says you are here, right? That is what we need to be looking at and where we want to be going. It's those mall maps or the maps anywhere where you are that's got the you are here. You really cannot figure out the fastest path to where you're trying to go until you really understand where you are right now. In business, that's really a lot harder than most people realize because they're looking at the symptoms going on in the business instead of what the patterns actually may be. They may think it's a sales problem, a marketing problem, a team problem, like I said in my introduction before, but the real problem can be hidden operational friction or misalignment somewhere else in the business. So before anyone is making these major decisions, businesses really need clarity around what's actually happening beneath the surface, where is energy being lost, and where is the friction really starting.
Fantastic. I mean, that makes sense to me because God knows I'm in that spot more often than I'd like to be. Kimberly, how about from your viewpoint?
Yeah, I love what everybody shared so far. And to piggyback a little bit on the last point, I think a lot of entrepreneurs in my world, anyways, look at the wrong data first. So they obsess over vanity metrics, things like likes and followers on social media, or in the book writing world, they want to get that Amazon bestseller status, or they want to get a lot of reviews on Amazon is another one that I hear a lot of. But those things don't necessarily tell you what's going on in your business or whether your business is healthy. And instead, just like I think it was Jennifer that was just talking about that, that I tell people to look at their what I call the client journey numbers. So in my world, I help my clients simplify their business down to a really simple three-step process: one book, one conversion event, and one offer. It doesn't mean you might not have more offers in your ascension plan, but the forward-facing marketing is based on that one book, one event, one offer. And your book attracts the right people, your event nurtures them and educates them, and then your offer converts them into a client. So if you're not really sure where your numbers are at, really what you should be asking yourself is how many leads are coming in, right? How many people are registering for that event, whether it's a webinar or workshop or a challenge or a masterclass. And then the next number is what's the show up rate? And then ultimately, how many people are you converting in a client into clients? Because that's where you figure out where the broken step in your client journey is. So maybe it's not maybe it's that you're not attracting enough leads. Maybe it's there's not enough people registering for your event, or maybe you get lots of registrations but not a lot of show ups. So when you're looking at your metrics from that point of view, you don't have to panic. You can just figure out which part of your journey is leaking, and then clarity comes from that. So kind of a one-liner, if you were gonna pick, it's stop tracking popularity and start tracking progress.
I love that. Thank you. David, how about from your point of view?
Thanks so much, and I appreciate everybody else's responses. And from my perspective, in the companies and clients I work with, and they're all shapes and sizes, a lot of times when there's a challenge or people are getting unsettled, they go right to the financial data. They start looking at revenue and KPIs and going through their financial dashboard. But I find that's a lagging indicator. That tells you you have a problem or a challenge or things aren't going as projected, but it doesn't tell you where, why, who, how. And I think the people focused data gets overlooked. And just being a leader who makes observations, pays attention, actively listens about how are your high performers showing up? Are they disengaged? Are they bringing energy? Are they leaving early? Um, your performance observations are your real-time dashboard of how people are showing up at work. And if there's changes in behavior, it may be a culture related issue. It may be a manager or leadership issue. Is attrition rising? If attrition is rising, that would be my greatest concern, because people don't typically quit companies, they quit managers. And I'd want to dig in to have an understanding of if there's a pain point. Also, are you aware of the temperature of the conversations happening in the organization? Is there conflict that wasn't there before? Are people being more abrupt with each other? Are meetings engaging, interactive? Is there a dialogue? I worked with one leader who would show up into a meeting and say, here's what I think we should do, and hit their bullet points. And now I'd say, what do you think we should do? And nobody wanted to challenge the manager after they already gave their ideas, and they shut down, and that impacted really good quality decision making. And finally, as the leader, are you self-aware of how you're showing up, how you're impacting others? Do you create an environment where people are going to tell you the truth without fear of retaliation or being punished for it? There's a greatly underutilized quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that I use with my leaders, and it's be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Okay, be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Impact the climate and energy in the room, not reacting to what other people give you. Because how you show up greatly impacts how your message and communication is received.
Thank you, David. That was great. That was such a helpful place to start with all of you, actually, because before any business owner can make a better decision, what they really need to understand is, Jennifer, to your point, where they actually are. That little circle that says you are here. I just absolutely love that analogy because I use that all the time. I speak in mall map. Just, I'm always searching for it. And understanding where they actually are and not where they are assuming they are, that's really where the difference comes in. My next question is something that, Kimberly, you touched on it a little bit, especially when you talked about what people should and should not be paying attention to. But for all of you in your area of expertise, what do you feel the business owners often pay too much attention to, and then not enough, or something that they should be paying more attention to instead? And Kim, I know you mentioned that before, but when your turn comes, if you can, I guess, maybe go a little bit deeper. Chris, let's start with you again.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that business owners tend to obsess over that may not matter is their website traffic, total website traffic. I cannot tell you how many times someone tells me how many site views they get, and when I dig into it, 80% bounced in under 10 seconds, 0 of them converted. So traffic can sometimes, more often than not, be a vanity metric. So it might feel like you're making progress, but it's not paying the mortgage, right? So the thing that I would recommend business owners pay more closer attention to is conversion behavior on the very few pages that are performing best, which pages bring in leads, what people are actually typing into Google to find those pages, so your queries, and what they do when they arrive. So behavior. I would say for one of my clients, they have 3 blogs that rank really well on Google. So we've really refined their content strategy to reflect what's working and what their audience is responding to. And search terms like, for this particular client, might be what is lymphedema? That might be an interesting search query, but a search query titled lymphedema compression therapy near me is going to result in revenue, and they're going to be two totally different buyers. So focusing on the appropriate keywords in order to get the right audience that's going to take action is really important. And I would say that out of the questions business owners should be really asking themselves, I would say, which pages converted on your website? What did people search for to find you? And what is the next piece of content that you can build that would look like your existing winning pieces?
That's great. Thank you. Meryl, how about from your point of view? What do you find that your clients, you wish they would pay more attention to versus what they should really be paying attention to?
So I find people often are stuck in the weeds like 100% of the time, right? They're in there running their business all the time, working in the business, and they forget to take the time to work on the business, right? So it's like if every day we're even just 1 degree off, that's going to lead us to miles off down the road if we don't stop along the way and just check back in with ourselves, with our roadmap, like we've been talking about so far, right? That red dot, where am I? If you're not looking at that map, like Jennifer said, like you have no idea where you're going. But it's really hard because the day to day, the weeds of the business, that is important. But I'm here to help people and say, hey, what if you just spent 4, 5 hours a month checking in on the health of things, the status, where we're going? That might be enough, right? It doesn't have to feel like a really onerous, overwhelming process to be very effective.
Mhm. I like that viewpoint. I know I personally struggle with some of those things on a regular basis, as I'm
I
sure.
mean, we all do, right? Because there's so
Yes,
much to be done every day.
there
And so you
is.
have to schedule it, plan the time, make it a priority, and say, hey, I am going to do this. And a great way to do that is to have a partner, whether that's a coach you're working with. I also put together peer groups, right? So a mastermind group where you're working with other business owners. If you commit to meeting with them once a month, they're going to be there to help you hold yourself accountable and to support you along the way. So build those structures, have the right relationships with people who are going to make it easy for you to do the work. Right? It's like if I've committed to my friend that I'll meet them at the gym, I'm much more likely to meet them at the gym. It's the same thing for running your business, right? You can set those relationships and scenarios up for yourself.
Absolutely. Jennifer, how about from your perspective?
Thank you. And I just have to tack on to what Meryl just said with accountability. It is so important to have accountability buddies. I've got my accountability group that meets every Monday, and so important in that regard. Really important to keep that in mind. But again, to go back, like we've said a couple of times now, the vanity metrics is one of those things that way too many people pay attention to. You cannot go to the bank with likes, followers, comments, whatever it is that's there. The only thing that you really can do is when people become paying clients and the check comes in or the credit card is put through. The other thing that way too many business owners are paying more attention to is revenue over profitability.
Mhm.
I say revenue feeds your ego, profit feeds your family. If we don't understand that difference, then we lose way too much because everybody says, and I don't know why the number is in small businesses. Every entrepreneur starts a business saying, I want to make $1 million a year, right? Any entrepreneur you've spoken with probably said they want to get to $1 million a year. But that $1 million in revenue can be extremely different if I'm bringing home $800,000 or I'm bringing home $300,000, right? The difference, that $500,000 that's in the middle, where's that going? What's actually happening? Way too many businesses are a lot busier than they really should be, going down the hole, becoming less efficient when they're not paying attention to all of these different aspects in their business.
I completely relate to that, because that could be difficult, right? It's hard to stop and make that it's a fuzzy area for folks, right? There are things that are sitting in our heads versus the numbers that are, taking the time to actually look and dig into that. It's one of those things that, oh, I don't have time for that. I'd rather spend my time on revenue generating activity or whatever the case may be versus sitting there and trying to analyze what's really happening outside of our brains so that we can get clarity on that. So I appreciate that.
Exactly. Thank you.
Kim, how about you?
Yeah, it seems like there's a common thread going on here, and it's definitely
Yes.
that one about vanity metrics over conversion metrics. So in Chris's world, she talks about traffic versus conversion. In my world, visibility versus conversion metrics. So when people are focused on likes, just like Jennifer said, you can't take likes to the bank. Or people will be like, oh, did my reel go viral? They're focused on going viral on social media. Did I hit bestseller status? Or how many reviews does my book have? I know one of my competitors focuses almost solely on Amazon reviews, but again, you can't take an Amazon review to the bank. And furthermore, when you're sending your book buyer to Amazon, you're not collecting any data. You're not collecting email addresses and names because Amazon doesn't give those to you. So, and don't get me wrong, like those things are fun because I do help my authors become Amazon bestsellers, but those credibility metrics aren't what's most important and drive the needle towards making money inside of your business, because credibility without clients is just expensive validation in my world. So what I care about helping my clients track is the qualified leads coming in. So how many readers are you getting out of your book and into your world, not into your world on your email list and showing up for your events that you're hosting inside of your business? What's those show up rates? I talked about that in the last question. And not only just show up rates, but for example, some people are hosting a multi-day event. So what's your drop off rates from day 2 and day 3? So how are you helping your people stay engaged in the event and stay till the end? Because if you have half your registrants or your attendees fall off before you delivered your offer on day 3, well, then you're going to have a conversion problem. So again, we're back to those conversion metrics, right? And those are the numbers that really tell you if your business is growing. So I guess to wrap it all up is instead of obsessing over whether your book becomes a bestseller, I'd rather ask, how many butts in seats did you get? Because butts and seats are more important than bestseller status, just like revenue is more important than reviews. So that's my take.
Perfect. Thank you. David, how about from your point of view? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so great shares among the panel. I agree that accountability is probably the most important leadership management tool, holding ourselves accountable as well as other people on clearly defined expectations. And probably where most companies have the greatest challenge with accountability being consistent. And for me, what I see leaders do is focus on surface level issues of behavior, like this person's got a difficult personality, or there's low morale, or sales have been moving sideways for months, and they don't focus on root causes. And in many cases, they may be contributing to the root cause. And are they seeking feedback as to what they can do better? Do they have a growth mindset? Or do they put up a defensive posture? Do they get frustrated or upset if people try to give them feedback? Because feedback's a gift. And unless we seek information on how other people are experiencing us, it's very hard to get alignment connecting our intentions to what's actually happening if we don't ask people. And what I also think is incredibly important that leaders and managers don't spend enough time on their own emotional self-regulation. A lot of times we're making decisions in highly stressed conditions, cortisol, adrenaline flowing through our bodies, probably the worst conditions to make a rational, logical decision. And I work with leaders to de-escalate that through nasal diaphragmatic breathing exercises. And at first, sometimes I get eye rolls and cringes, Dave, I breathe. But after working with some leaders, some have found that it was a game changer for them to have clarity of focus in highly stressed situations. The last thing is emotional intelligence to business success. Last year, there was an article published in Bloomberg called Empaths at the Gate. And real briefly, KKR, Kravitz, Kohlberg, Roberts and Company, a $600 billion private equity fund. In the 1980s was part of the RJR Nabisco leverage buyout, where they got the moniker barbarians at the gate. Okay, kind of people you'd want to have move next door, barbarians at the gate. They wore it proudly. And they broke up companies and sold off pieces and made a lot of money. A couple of years ago, one of their leaders, Peter Stavros, started doing research on leadership and emotional intelligence, and he hired a professor from Stanford University, Jamil Zaki, who's an empathy expert. They assessed all the CEOs of companies in the KKR portfolio on emotional intelligence, gave them assessments. The leaders who scored high in emotional intelligence led companies that significantly outperformed companies led by leaders who scored low in emotional intelligence or empathy specifically. And it's not empathy about coddling people or wanting to be liked. It was about understanding other people's circumstances and knowing what resources and support they need to thrive and succeed. And now if you go to KKR's website where they prominently feature this article, they want to be known as empaths at the gate.
That's a little bit of a turnaround. That's great. I mean, I have seen that and I understand exactly what you're talking about, because I think we've all experienced people who, I mean, I find that there is a different label to that over time. Different people call it different things. It's been known to be referred to as reading the room or understanding the people that you're talking to, or not being a narcissist and things of that nature. And
yeah, and I use the EQI assessment, which is a widely used tool to measure emotional intelligence with the leaders I coach. And it drills down to 15 behaviors that include impulse control, stress management, assertiveness, interpersonal relationships, independence, self-regard. And all these things factor in. If you have high assertiveness and low impulse control, you're probably cutting people off and interrupting. If you have high optimism and low reality testing, you see everything is great. And you're not looking around corners and you're like, come on, everybody, we're going this way. And you may be going the wrong way, but nobody can tell you that.
that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Moving into our next question, it's really a chance to kind of talk a little bit more about decision readiness. And the concept here is, before a business owner makes an important decision or invests in help or changes direction, what do you wish they would understand, clarify, or prepare first? Basically, how do you wish they would, when they're coming to you for assistance and for partnership, what do you wish they would know so that that onboarding and that transition and your ability to assess whether or not your service is in fact what they need at this time, how would you describe that, or what do you wish they would know when they approach you to begin with? Chris, go ahead and start us off.
So what I wish businesses would clarify before they hire anyone, including myself, is really very simple. What does a good lead actually look like for their business? I get calls sometimes from owners who say they need more leads, but do they know from where and what zip codes for which service at what price point? Repeat customers, first timers. Usually when I ask those questions, very specific questions about target audience and specifically the leads that they're looking to gain, they can't really define explicitly with detail. So really refine what that ICP is and where they hang out online is really important, because I really believe strongly in the evolution of marketing from this outbound approach to an inbound approach. And it's not until you really refine that target audience that you're able to attract the right audience rather than broadcast to the masses. The second thing that I wish they would prepare is just a baseline, where they are right now. How many leads came in last month, from which source, how many turned into paying clients, what was the average project value, I think that when you don't have clarity on all those details, you end up hiring someone and you get more traffic, you feel busier, but you can't really prove that that investment is paying off. And I would say that the third thing is just patience with their timeline, especially for our services and specifically to SEO. It's not a 30-day game. Ads can be, but I don't recommend anyone run ads until they have an organic approach that is proven to work. So reputation, content, rankings, referrals, all of these things compound over time. So understanding that it takes time to implement certain tools and strategies and to just have patience and uh, track your progress as you go. It's really important.
Great. Thank you for that. I know that I just learned something. Probably things I don't know either. Meryl, how about you?
So before I'll work with someone, I really need to know if they want to do the work, right? You can't help someone who doesn't want to change. And there's also a difference between I want things to be different and yes, I will commit the time to do it. Yes, I'm I'm ready to jump in. Um, a little bit another way of looking at your question, then when I'm working with clients, I've mentioned this, I think in every every time I've spoken today, is any decision that you're making should be aligned with your goals, right? And above the goals is another level, some people call a critical success factor, right? Like what is essential for your to be happening in your business for it to be successful, right? Whatever successful means to you, if it's enough revenue, the level of profitability, right? If you're the take home for your family, for your employees, right? It's like any decision you make should be in service of achieving that. And if it's not, it's not the right decision.
That's fantastic. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me as well, though I'm wondering if that's sometimes difficult. Do you find that people struggle with that?
Well, I mean, we
That
all do,
initial,
right?
yes,
Because shiny objects come
of
and the
course.
problem in front of you is really urgent, right? I think a lot of people have kids. And I was somewhere this weekend and I heard a lot of mama, 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 hey mama, mama, I want this, mama, right? It's like whatever we're out in public and you're trying to wrangle your kids at the same time you're trying to accomplish something else. It's exactly the same way in your business. So sometimes it's the loudest voice, the most persistent voice, the angriest client. And it's easy for us to be stuck in those loops of responding to those things. Um, and sometimes you do have to respond in the moment, but then making the time later to pause and say, whoa, okay. What am I working on here? Is this really deserved of the continued amount of time, effort, energy I'm putting into it? Can I delegate this to someone? Do I need to fire this client? Right, those kinds of questions coming back to making sure that you're spending your energy in the right places to have right, because you want the intended outcome, right? Someone told me once you can't control an outcome, but you can try to control the inputs that result in the output that you want, and hopefully the output will result in the outcome. And so that's kind of the pause to work backwards.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Jennifer, how about from your viewpoint? What do you wish your clients knew before they ever came your way?
So I want to take a step aside for a second because this is really going to illustrate part of the point. Think about a doctor. A doctor, you come in with a cough. A doctor is going to say, you have a cough, I'm going to give you cough medicine. But they're not going to necessarily say, let's figure out why you actually have a cough. The problem that a lot of small businesses have is that they're diagnosing that symptom instead of what the underlying problem actually is. They may be saying, we need more leads. We may need new software. We may need to hire. We may need. The problem, though, is that it's not really clear what exactly is the underlying cause of all of these problems. Is it that there's unclear processes, right? If you don't know exactly what you're doing, it's not going to work. Like Meryl was just saying, if you don't know exactly what the outcome is, you can't get there. Like, again, that you are here, you can't get there. Is it misaligned incentives? Sometimes in a sales department, the incentives aren't always working the way that you want them to be working. And so the sales department may not be working in the way that is ultimately going to work for you. And you have poor communication flow, whether it's top down, bottom up, laterally, communication is a huge thing. And sometimes that can be causing problems too. And then again, decision bottlenecks, right? Is the manager the actual decision bottleneck? Or in single person businesses, we are our worst decision bottleneck, right? That analysis by paralysis by analysis idea is there for a reason because we are so bogged down. And again, when a business owner is trying to figure out what's actually going on in their business, so much of what we're trying to figure out is how do I just get away from here, right? You know, the old comic that you have the guy who gives up a foot away from the gold. Sometimes you have the owner who's sitting there and, to use another example, the horse in Central Park walking around with the blinders, we can't see what's over here. We only see what's ahead of us. And so we can't get out of our own way. And so it's really important for the business to understand at least, I need to at least look at what exactly is going on in the business and find that underlying problem. And then everything else can work. So if we can't do that, nothing else is really going to work because everything is going to ultimately implode when you don't fix the actual problem.
Do you find that a lot of people or the clients that come your way that they kind of have that sort of, I'm going to call it prequel information, for lack of a better word, but do you feel that by the time they come to you that they already have those pieces clarified so that you can kind of get started and go from there? Or do you find that you need to have them go a step back in order to figure out what those pieces are?
I would say that the vast majority have absolutely no clue what exactly is causing the problem. And that's why very often when I start working with a new client, I say, let's pretend I am completely dumb, right? I know nothing. Tell me what's going on in the business. Tell me exactly what you're doing. And then I can start seeing different, like when you get a crack in the windshield and all the spider legs come out. So I can see where all of those spokes are coming out of what their problem is, and then I can start diagnosing. But the problem is that too many people, oh yeah, I'm perfect. I know everything. I went to AI and AI is telling me I'm brilliant. Way too many of us have done that. And I have way too many clients that have come to me and said, well, AI led me down the wrong path and I have no idea how to fix it.
That's a good point as well. Thank you for that. Kimberly, how about from your point of view? What do you wish your clients knew before they ever came knocking on your door?
Yeah, again, the common theme seems to be clarity, right? So, two things I could add to this part of the conversation is one, I wish they would slow down for a minute. There's a saying called slowing down to speed up. And really, if you can slow down long enough to figure out what exactly is the problem you're trying to solve and have complete clarity about that, who are you trying to help? What result are you trying to help them achieve? What's the simplest path for them to get there? Because like Meryl was talking about, shiny object syndrome, it's a real thing, my friend. Like I know, I've done it too, right? Too often people are jumping from one marketing strategy to the next coach, the next software, the next funnel, the next ad campaign. But what they really haven't fixed is that underlying problem of what is that a thing that they're trying to achieve before jumping to the next tactics, the next fancy strategy, right? And if you can do that and slow down and answer those questions, you're one step ahead of the game. The next thing that I usually see is that people are trying to build a business on top of confusion, right? So again, the clarity piece is really clear. Clarity comes first, and decisions and pivots and changes all need to come second. So that second piece is kind of the whole simplify to multiply. So too many times people are like, oh, well, this offer didn't work, so I'm going to change it to this offer. And they're changing their offers, and they're creating another lead magnet and another this and another that. And all of a sudden, their message is being diluted. Their customer or their audience is unclear about what they even do to help them solve what even problem they don't even know what they help them solve. So if you can really simplify that down, that's why when I'm working with people, it's one book, one event, one offer. Again, you can have multiple offers in the background, but your front-facing marketing needs to be really clear, and you have to have clarity around that message to be able to then validate what your client is going to be doing next and have serious clarity on that client journey. That's the most important part in my opinion. So the two things: slow down, get the clarity on those answers, and then simplify to multiply.
I love that. And I love the way that you talk in threes, because that really helps us remember some of these points that you're making. So I appreciate that. Thank you. David, what about from your viewpoint? What
Yeah,
do you wish your clients would know ahead of time?
oh, so much. But then
One
they
or
wouldn't
two.
need me. But the panel shared such great ideas, and I would just like to build off of some of them because I use a lot of these themes and messages, around clarity. I say clarity is kindness, ambiguity is a destroyer. And sometimes there's a reluctance to have that direct conversation. And I'm a big quote person. Another quote attributed to Teddy Roosevelt over 100 years ago: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And expressing that spirit of care allows you to bring a sledgehammer of directness. I say, Marie, I care about your career growth and skill development because I care. I need to give you this feedback. And you could be very direct as opposed to saying, this was terrible. Don't ever give me something like this again. Now you're focused on how I'm saying it and not what I'm saying. And the whole notion, Meryl, you brought up some great points around aligning around goals. And I would add to that, organizational values. Does your company, a lot of people put up their vision statement, mission statement on their websites, core values, goals. It To have them is great. If you do not live by them and your behavior contradicts them, it is doing you more harm than good, because Gen Z and young millennials actually read them, and they look towards organizations to model those behaviors. And if you don't, again, going to reputation and brand, I tell my clients every human interaction you have either increases trust or diminishes trust. I have a colleague who's a PhD. He's like, there's no trust neutral. You either increase trust or diminish trust. So are you cultivating high trust relationships? And I think not enough clients put enough effort into building those relationships and getting to know clients and checking in with them, even if you don't have business going on at a particular time. And Meryl, what you also said about how you show up and contribute impacts the outcome. There's a leadership formula: E plus R equals O. So the events of our lives completely out of our control. We don't know what's showing up, but our response completely in our control. So the events plus our response equals the outcome. So we do influence the outcome of situations by how we show up. And I deal with a lot of clients who have high skepticism, high pessimism, and they say, Dave, we're making money. Why do I even need to talk to you? But they don't recognize how much money they're leaving on the table. And there's that resistance to change. And I tell them, I'm not here to change you. I can't make you change. You have to want to change, but I can only show you the benefits of change. And we're talking incremental change, because anything drastic or radical is typically not sustainable. And I talk to my clients about being 1% better today than you were yesterday. Just be able to point to 1% of behavior that you did differently on any given day. And that aggregate over months results in significant change.
I love that. It's like it makes me think about, like, I go through this exercise of doing slight self-assessments at the end of the day, and thinking back and going, what could I have done differently, especially when it comes to communication, where I'm not just focused on a particular task that I did. It's more, how did that conversation go? Did I get the outcome that I wanted, or another conversation? Because as we work with people, if we don't control our own piece of that relationship, then we're not going to get what it is that we're trying to get out of those settings, out of those people, out of those relationships, and things like that. So I appreciate that viewpoint as well. Thank you. Before we move into kind of like our speed advice round, I want to give each of you on the panelists a quick opportunity to share how attendees can continue learning from you. Some of you might have a free resource to share, or maybe you just want to share the best way to connect or a next step recommendation. This is a good segment for that. Chris, let's start with you.
So I provide website audits, and I also have a tool that can measure or take all of your metrics and measurements from the Googles and your website traffic, and basically give you an outline of next steps in order to improve traffic, improve conversions, where you're maybe bleeding traffic, or where you have a really low click-through rate that can be easily improved for high impact. I'm starting a school community. It will be live as of Friday, so that will be a really helpful resource for people that have the time to invest in learning how to make the most of their time using some tools with AI. And easiest way to reach me is really through email. It's Chris, Kris, at njbusinessai.com. You can also check out the website. There's some lead magnets on there that are beneficial and helpful, but really the easiest way to reach me is directly through my email.
Great, thank you. Meryl, how about you?
The easiest way to reach me is probably either through my website or my LinkedIn. Both of those have a book time with me. It'll bring you right to my Calendly, or my email is Meryl, Merrill, at tabgateway.com. And I have a few resources I offer people. It depends where you are in your business. What does your business look like? I have a snapshot diagnostic, just a few questions that you can go in, kind of assess how your business is, and then happy to have a conversation about it. I think it's really important, if you're gonna pick a coach or join a peer group, to be able to test it out first. So I always offer that. So anyone who's interested in doing a complimentary coaching session, if you want to come as a guest and test out one of the peer groups I run, all of my groups welcome visitors one time, no charge. Come see what it is and be an active participant. Bring a real topic. We'll do a deep dive. And then we also expect you to come and give your advice as well. So that's really the best. Come test it out.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, how about you?
Thank you. So, excuse me. One of the biggest challenges that business owners face, and we all know that, like we said before, is everything is off. So that's why I created the Revenue Friction Index as a way to help businesses start diagnosing where the hidden friction may be slowing growth, profitability, or even decision-making clarity. And for anyone that wants to go even further into strategic partnerships and growth leverage as a part of using the friction to help with growth, I've also got a JV guide, and Sabrina just dropped that link in the chat. So that's probably going to be the best way to start continuing the conversation.
Fantastic, thank you. Kim, over to you.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just actually changed my name on my profile, so you can see at the real Kim Day That's how you can
Okay.
find me on every single social media platform. So that's my handle on all social platforms. So I'd love for you to friend me on Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram. You can check out my YouTube channel, although that's still kind of in progress. But I also have a free resource for anybody who resonates with using a book at the top of your funnel to drive leads and revenue into your business. It's called the Book to Buyers Toolkit. It's 3 resources to help you get consistent and predictable income into your business. A ChatGPT book launch blueprint, so you can help outline and write your book using AI. It is 5 done for you client enrollment launch maps. So whether you want to use a webinar or a challenge or just a strategy session like booking a one-on-one sales call, there's a map in there that fits your needs, hopefully. And then I have a training on how to get your first or your next 100 leads, or in my case, readers into your business. So you can find that resource on School. And like I think Meryl was just talking about, you can actually test out my entire community for 7 days for free. So you'll find that resource inside of the community along with all sorts of other resources, ChatGPT prompts, Canva templates, all the resources you need to write and publish a book that you can use to drive leads and clients into your business.
Fantastic. Thank you. David, how about you?
Thanks so much, Marie. I do a lot of work around assessments with my leaders to help them raise their self-awareness, understand what drives them, what motivates them, because quite often we don't take a lot of time to think about that and reflect. And those things can also change over time with differences in life circumstances, professional career circumstances. So one of the offerings I have today is a values exercise that also has a variety of tasks for you to do and reflect and think and be able to respond to how you see yourself with respect to what your core values are. So if you email me at david@sarnoffgroup.com, I will send you the values exercise. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn. David B. Sarnoff is my handle on LinkedIn. And I post a lot of content and articles and participate in webinars and conferences as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. If anybody missed any of the links, not to worry, there will be an email going out after the event that will have a summary of all of the information and the gifts that you've shared and the links and all of that. So not to worry about all of that is missing, but it's also in the chat. The next piece I want to move into is this kind of like lightning round advice sort of chapter. I'd love to do almost like, what is one thing, practical business tip that owners can use this week or in a very short, near-term kind of future to make either a better decision about something they already have, or to try to figure out, as we all talked about, the starting point is the hardest part, getting that clarity on what exactly is the issue or what exactly is the problem, even though we may not know what's causing it, to have that start here kind of spot. What is it that you guys could give? If you can only give one thing or have someone think about one thing, what would that be? Chris?
So I always recommend this to my clients because I think it's important to not just assume what your keywords are. I think it's really important to know what your target audience is searching for online, and especially now with more people using AI as a search tool. There's a tool called Answer the Public, and it will allow you to not only see what people are typing into Google and Bing and search engines, but also AI tools. And it gives you explicit phrases and long-term keywords that people are using for finding various services or products. So I would recommend learning more about what it is that people are actually searching for and creating content using keywords that are actually being used, rather than making any assumptions or putting out content that has no direct impact to your business because it's based off of assumptions rather than factual data.
That's great. Thank you for that. How about you, Meryl?
So I have a monthly newsletter and I always want it to be actionable for people. And one of the things I wrote about for May that I keep getting a lot of feedback is have a to don't list.
Ooh.
Right? So we always have to-do lists. I know I've been talking about a lot about goals, but it's okay to not do things. It's great to not do things on purpose. So if you have a to don't list, sometimes that helps us give ourselves the permission. Some of the things are to never get done, but some are to be delegated, right? So there can be some distinction in your to don't list, but adding that could be really helpful for some people.
I love that. I've never thought about that. I almost feel bad if I had to do that, but I see the benefit of having that kind of list because it would probably be a load off. Um, Jennifer, what about you?
I have to say, I love that to don't list.
I know,
It
right?
is so amazing and right on. The one thing I would say to do is choose one recurring frustration that's inside your business right now and ask whether it's actually a symptom of a larger misalignment somewhere else in the business. You have to remember, like we said, most recurring operational frustrations are signals, not isolated events. So figure out exactly what that is and then see how you can really start zeroing it out so that you can start seeing opportunity.
I love that. Thank you. Kim, what about you?
Yeah, I love all those shares.
I know, right?
I think my practical tip would just be this: pick one thing to obsess about over this week. Not 20 numbers, not a giant spreadsheet, not all the things. Just pick one thing. And then I think somebody mentioned it earlier, focus on your input, which is what you can control. So for example, maybe it's you're focusing on prospecting and all you're focused on this week is how many outreaches did I do? And the win becomes, hey, I did my 50 outreaches like I said I was going to do. And hopefully at some point then you're tracking whether the leads turned into event registrations, whether they turned into a show up rate, whether they turned into conversations, but focusing on one specific input that will move the needle and move your business forward.
I love that. I'm someone who loves to obsess. So you've just given me permission to just obsess over one thing.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. I think I needed that. David, how about you? What would be your final tip of the day?
Yeah, no, going back to again, self-regulation and breathing and understanding that when we're under stress, our amygdala is producing adrenaline and cortisol. Cortisol is a real corrosive chemical. It stays in the blood for a long time. It contributes to hypertension and heart disease and exacerbates diabetes. And we can reduce the flow of it by breathing, and that allows you to have clarity of thought and focus. Um, Daniel Goleman coined the term amygdala hijack. When you're in a heightened state and there's sufficient cortisol and adrenaline, your ability to think and act rationally becomes impaired because the amygdala only wants you acting. It impairs your ability to access your thinking brain and in your prefrontal cortex. So if you're going to pick up the phone and have a stressful conversation, or you're leaving a stressful meeting and going to another meeting, just take a few minutes. One easy exercise, deep breath, inhale through your nose, but you want to breathe into your diaphragm. So you can put your hand on your belly. As you inhale, you want your stomach to expand and take a deep inhale, hold it for 2 seconds, let it out very slowly. Do that 5 or 6 times, and I know when I do it, I feel like this. I've reduced my ampness by a level. And the more you do it, it's a muscle. The more you practice, the better you get at it. I'd also Google box breathing. There's the best box breathers in the world are Navy SEALs. They need to stay calm in chaos, or it can cost them dearly. So there's YouTube videos of Navy SEALs teaching box breathing. And I use that with almost all my clients.
Sorry about that. That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. I really appreciate all of the insights, the practical advice, and the different perspectives that each of you brought to this conversation. I'm going to take a few minutes to sort of put this all together. I'm going to also bear with me while I unhighlight you guys, if I can figure out how to do that in a way that's not awkward, because that's not happening. Bear with me. It will be hmm, hmm, where does that go? No, that's I think I'm getting some help with that, because obviously this is not the technical piece that I know how to do. So I did want to take the time to connect the dots. Each panelist today came at this topic from a different area of business. But what I hope everybody noticed, but there was a common thread. I mean, I think we all saw that, where decisions come from not just having necessarily more data at your fingertips, or it's all about the right type of data. It's about having the right information organized in the right way, in a way that not only that we can understand it as business owners, but also that we can explain that and communicate that to folks that we are either trying to hire or we're trying to partner up with and outsource that particular activity. No one can really do it without having all the right pieces in front of them in order to be able to do that. One of the reasons I put this panel together is because I see so many business owners. They're doing all the right things. They're working really hard. They're serving their clients. They're building relationships, and they're trying to grow, but still making decisions without the level of clarity that they really need. I know I'm guilty of that, just like everybody else is. And I don't think this happens because we're careless. It doesn't. It happens because the information inside of the business, some of it is scattered. Some of it is in our heads. Some of it is sitting in different spreadsheets or different platforms or different reports. And when it's like that, when it's all in these disparate areas and spots, decisions become harder because we don't really have a full picture of everything. And then how can we really even determine what the problem is if we don't see the whole picture? The lens on this, for me, comes through the work that even I do with my own clients. I help business owners create clean, structured financial clarity so that they can better understand what is actually happening in their business from a financial perspective. And one thing I believe very strongly in is that having numbers, and everybody talked about numbers, they were from a different aspect. Having these numbers is not the same as having clarity. I feel like this is it's a horse, and we're certainly are not done beating on it. But as a business, from the financial perspective, you can have QuickBooks, you can have bank feeds, you can have your reports. But if the information is not accurate, if it's not organized, if it isn't structured in a way that reflects how your business actually works and how your brain translates that information, the cognitive load on you can be much greater than it should be. Because if you have reports that are not native to how your mind thinks, you're going to spend an extra time translating those reports, as opposed to being able to look at something that is more native to your own way of thinking and how your brain operates. And that's really where confident decision-making needs to come from. And when we can't do that, it doesn't really support any kind of big business progress. The way I think about decision-ready information is similar to Kim. I have 3 layers to this. The first layer is accuracy, are the numbers correct? The second one is structure. Are they organized in a way that reflects how the business actually works? And then the third one is insight. Can you get the information out of what you're looking at to answer what your real questions are? Where is my money going? What is actually profitable? What really needs attention? Can I afford to hire someone? Can I invest in further growth? Can I bring someone on board that will help me achieve a particular goal faster as opposed to doing it myself? Because that's the other thing we all think of, is we think we can do it all, and we can, but it becomes a time issue, and time is not unlimited. We also want to know if the business is getting stronger or is it just getting busier? And this is all, it exists, but if the reports are not showing us, or the data that we're looking at is not, doesn't help us create insight, it becomes paperwork, and not a real tool for decision making. I think the same pattern showed up throughout today's discussion, whether we're talking about marketing, sales, operations, leadership, and systems, or even financial reporting. The question is always, can you see what's happening clearly enough to make a confident decision? That's what really moving from data to making real decisions means. It's not about tracking everything. It's not about, it's really more about understanding what truly matters, creating structure around it, and using that information with intention. From my viewpoint, here is a next step I'd like to offer. If today's conversation made you wonder whether or not your financial information is giving you the clarity that you need, I invite you to take the assessment quiz on my website. That's something that I've built out specifically for business owners, because when we think about talking regarding our financials, it could be embarrassing. We're not very comfortable saying, it's a mess, or I don't feel comfortable to it. It creates sometimes for some people a sense of shame and feeling like they somehow aren't smart enough to do it, or they just kind of missed the boat on it, or whatever the case may be. And it really isn't, because it becomes an issue of focus. So that assessment quiz is the whole intention behind it, was really to, if you feel like that initial conversation is making your stomach churn and you're a little uncomfortable having it, then it's a nice anonymous way in order to be able to kind of start to think about that process and seeing whether or not that could be helpful to you and not. And if your results raise questions, or if you realize you'd like to have a deeper conversation, you can also feel free to schedule a call. All of that can, of course, be done through my website. It's not about judgment. It's all about creating a clearer starting point. Because once you know where you are, the "you are here" circle, that I'd love for that. I wish that would pop up every time I went to do something, so that I could have that mole map in front of me in order to provide that guidance that I know I'm looking for. And even the panelists need that, as well as all of you that are participating with us today. So before we close, I just want to thank every single one of our panelists today. Thank you, Chris and Meryl, Jennifer, Kim, and David. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts and expertise, helping us look at decision-making from multiple angles, because it is different depending on what it is we're trying to achieve. Thank you, everybody who joined today. I hope that you leave with this idea that you don't need to track everything. You do need to understand what matters, and hopefully this helped you out a little bit. If we moved you just one step forward, then to me the goal of this discussion hit the mark, because baby steps. We just need that next baby step, because every time we take it, we feel a little bit better about where we are and what we're doing, and we get a little bit more clarity, because God knows the whole thing is not gonna all of a sudden become clear overnight. There's a lot of work and effort that needs to go into that. Please watch out for the email that's going to come out after the event. We'll send all the panelists resources, ways to connect. I'll have a link to the assessment quiz in there. Again, thank you for being here. I hope this conversation helps you make your next business decision with a little bit more clarity and confidence. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.